Spotlight is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. It seeks to spotlight people, places, and events from around the Diocese of Youngstown that promote the new gospel of joy called for by Pope Francis. Your program host is Father James Korda.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Father Jim Korda. Today we're going to talk about the topic of human trafficking. And to help me in the discussion is Kitty Sherer and Jim Knight. Welcome both of you to Spotlight.
Oh, thank you, Father. We're very happy to be here.
Thank you. This is a very important issue and something that as we mentioned prior to the taping, really kind of a new thing that has really affected the lives of many, many people. And oftentimes when we think of human trafficking, we think of something that happens overseas, but it's something that's really affecting us here, right in our own backyards. We'd like to get as much information out as we can, but before we do that, we know that there's an organization called PATHS, Partners Against Trafficking Humans, Stark County in particular. Let's let the folks know what exactly PATHS is and tell us what your particular affiliation is with the organization. Kitty, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm a volunteer. Our group is all volunteers. And I've been with the group about 8 years. And it's a collaborative that actually is trying to do its part to educate the public and provide services for human trafficking victims and to educate the public to be on the lookout for it and what they can do about it. And I'm the treasurer. We don't have a lot of big bucks coming in or anything, but we do take donations, so we use those in our education of the public.
And Jim, what about your involvement in the organization?
Yes, I work as a crime prevention specialist with the Stark County Prosecutor John Ferrero's office. And since my background is in crime prevention and raising awareness about that, human trafficking was something I wanted to get. Awareness of human trafficking was what I wanted to get involved with, as that was a perfect fit. So I've been very fortunate to help this organization. And I serve as overseer of education and our speakers bureau for it.
You know, you mentioned the word organization, and I notice, Kitty, that you're a speaker for the organization. How important is it to educate the public about this issue? And why is it important for us to do that and for you to do that?
Well, it's a huge issue, but it's also very complicated. Everybody seems to kind of have an idea of what it is. We call it modern slavery. And even though, it's a global problem, it's very difficult to address. And so there are so many different hidden aspects of it that it's hard for, say, law enforcement on its own to, ferret it out and do something about it. So it takes everybody, it takes the whole public to be aware of it and to be able to fight it. And it's a huge industry, and unfortunately in this world where there's a lot of money involved, it's $150 billion industry. So it's second only, I think, to illegal arms sales. I mean, I think it's ahead of drug trafficking worldwide at this point. So it's kind of like when there's a lot of money to be made, there's a lot of people that are greedy and want to part of that action. So it takes all of us working together to be aware of it, to try and do something about it, and to potentially save the victims themselves.
Why don't we get into our discussions specifically about defining what human trafficking is, because oftentimes the folks that might be with us don't understand the full impact of what it is. So let's define that first.
Basically what it is modern slavery. Here in the United States, people thought that we eradicated slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. So now when you say that, no, there's slavery going on, they're like, well, no, not here. So they hear about it in other parts of the world, in Eastern Europe, in the Far East and stuff. But it goes on right here in the United States. And so it's not only a global problem, it's a national problem, and it's a local problem right here in the Youngstown area and in Northeast Ohio. The definition that we use is anyone who's involved in recruiting people, harboring them, which means like housing them, transporting them from place to place, providing them to somebody who wants to use a person, and obtaining them. So, and these can be for anything from a commercial sex act to labor services. And when they do that, they are using what we call force, fraud, or coercion. And it's kind of like people are doing this not of their own free will, is basically what it comes down to.
Let's talk about the legal part of it, because obviously when you're talking about human lives, and many of them probably underage human lives,
right,
we're talking about a crime. So from your aspect, Jim, what is all involved in that criminally?
Well, basically, I mean, I think Kitty had touched on a lot of it, but especially when she had pointed out that human trafficking does occur through force, fraud, or coercion, and we do have penalties now in place that can charge, especially the trafficker, and we now look at those, especially if they're in the exploited in the sex commercial, the sex commercial aspect. We will be treating them more as victims, especially if they're under 18. Immediately, we are not going to be seeing them or necessarily charging them. We are going to be looking at them as victims. So we are taking more of a rehabilitative approach. But the punishments can be more stronger for the traffickers themselves.
Sure. Let's talk about some of the numbers that's involved, because I'm sure you have some statistics, and those probably are going to be staggering, I would think.
Well, globally, around the world, the International Labor Organization tries to keep track, and they have estimated 21 million victims. Now, we have to be careful with statistics because, people you can manipulate them any which way. But as I said before, it's a $150 billion industry. So that's a lot of victims and a lot of money. 2/3 of these victims are involved in forced labor. The sex trafficking seems to get more of the attention. It's more, exciting for people to hear about in the news and stuff. But really, around the world, 2/3 of the people that are involved in being trafficked are forced labor. And of that number, a whole quarter of it, a fourth of the people are children. So you're talking about a huge number that are underage children that should be the protected, part of our population. And over half then of the victims are female, so women and children, but the female. So it's a huge problem.
We're going to talk a little bit more about those statistics. We're really out of time on our first segment, and as I mentioned before the taping, it will go pretty fast. So we're going to take a quick break and then get more into this issue nationally, and then I think locally, how it affects the lives of people that are our neighbors and all around us. But we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Their numbers are growing. More than a year ago, more than a decade ago. More people now living in this state than nearly any state in the Union. 1 out of every 10 families in America. 1 out of every 6 children in America. 33 million Americans teetering on the brink of hunger, sickness, hardship. 33 million Americans descending into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
We are in our 7th year, Cristo Rey Jesuit High School. It arose from the desire of the Jesuits in the Chicago province to serve the Hispanic community here in Chicago. One of the things that's unique about this school is that our kids work 5 days a month at offices in downtown Chicago to pay for their education. That idea originated here. We got telephone calls the first day from the companies thanking us for sending us those kids to their companies. The companies feel good about themselves. 95% of our kids are the first ones in their families to finish high school, and 87% of our graduates are in college right now. This project attracts wonderful, wonderful, enthusiastic, idealistic people. They have to have the desire to kind of reach for the stars. No one believed that it would be as successful as it is. Well, it's obviously caught on, and we're very, very excited about it.
Welcome back to our show. We're talking about human trafficking, and joining me again is Kitty Sherer and Jim Knight. You know, before we took a break, we were talking about the global issue. I'm sure you have some national statistics that are probably equally as staggering. Kitty, can you share those with us?
Well, unfortunately, across the nation, there's no official estimate of the number of victims, but a national anti-human trafficking group, which is called Polaris, has been very active over the last 10 years, and they have estimated that we have hundreds of thousands of victims just in the United States alone. Polaris is a group that has a national hotline, and they get calls in from victims or people that are reporting abuse and stuff. And they've had over 32,000 cases reported over the last 8 years. So they draw some conclusions as far as like the total numbers out there and stuff. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands. And they've identified 25 different types of trafficking. So we lump it like into labor and sex trafficking, but they've actually split it down into 25 types because each type has its own business what would you call it? Business organization plan. So they have different types of recruiting. They have different people that they would recruit. They have different ways of hiding it. So it runs everything from the escort services to agriculture to the restaurant industry to manufacturing. So they've had 32,000 cases just that they've investigated.
Jim, tell us about what's going on locally.
Well, if people want to find out more, they should go to the Ohio Attorney General's webpage at ohioattorneygeneral.gov and search for human trafficking. The Governor John Kasich also has a human trafficking task force, but they release annual reports each year, and these reports come in from law enforcement agencies, social service-based agencies, and even other human trafficking coalitions and task force. There's several throughout the state, like PAFs, and like one of the statistics that came in from the Attorney General's office in the past year was 100 law enforcement agencies across the state reported dealing with in total, from what was reported, 151 cases that had come through. And that's just law enforcement. Social service agencies or even hospitals, they could also report some different numbers as well. So even in the state, just like Kitty was saying, there's not an official one-stop number that's going to take place, but these are also just the reported cases. So we know that more is out there. And in Stark County, where we are based out of, our human trafficking, we have a human trafficking task force, which is made up with members from PAFs, but also from law enforcement and other social service-based agencies. And for 2016, they identified 7 victims in our county. And I think 4 were based in sex trafficking underage and 3 for labor trafficking. We may see that number grow as the years progress, not necessarily because the problem's getting worse, but because we're becoming more aware.
Right. Let's talk about the victims now, because sometimes it's important for us, or all the time I believe it's important for us to put a face to who are the people that are being trafficked. Oftentimes when we hear that, we might think of just women or just young children, but it runs the gamut, I would imagine. Right. Put a face on the victim for us.
Well, like we said, it cuts across all socioeconomic strata. So you have all age groups, all income levels. Here in the United States, for labor trafficking, I guess I think Jim will probably address the sex trafficking aspects here. But for labor trafficking, there were, in the last 10 years, there were 5,400 cases that were documented in the United States. I don't know, in our local news, Northeast Ohio news, I don't know, a couple years ago, there were a series of strip clubs in the Youngstown area, and they found that a lot of those victims that worked there were being held there against their will, and they're not allowed out. So it's one of those things that people are isolated or in poverty and stuff, and their immigration status might be a little uncertain. And so you get a lot of people that we call them the ones that are what's the word here? More liable to be recruited.
I see.
More
susceptible
to it, yes. Okay. And it's anybody in a poverty situation that's trying to get out of their situation is definitely it. And those people that are coming from a foreign country that don't speak the language, they are not familiar with our culture. They don't have access. They might not trust law enforcement because the country they come from. You don't do that. And so there are a lot of things that set them up to be victims in the first place. And a lot of times they're brought here just with out-and-out lies of coming to find a better life, making money like in the restaurant business, and then they're put in what we call debt bondage. They found that the average cost for a person being brought from overseas and told that they need to pay back over $6,000 because somebody has found them this great job to improve their life, and then they make very little or sometimes they make nothing, so they can't ever save up to get out of bondage. They don't understand how they have rights, so they don't seek out help. So that kind of makes it a very hidden crime and one that's very hard for them to escape from. So, and I know that, for the sex trafficking, it's very similar to that.
Yeah, I think very similar because, as with what Kitty was saying, a lot of what the trafficker is going to be playing on is that victim's vulnerability. And while, as we had mentioned, with trafficking, really anybody runs across the spectrum of who can be a victim, but a lot of times, especially as it's related to sex-related human trafficking, the victim can be about ages like 12 to 14. Because at this point, they're obviously very young, very vulnerable. They may not know their rights. They may not know just really much about life in general, or know when they could be being manipulated, and the trafficker will prey on that.
We are going to talk a little bit more about that, but we are out of time for our second segment, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll conclude and get some more information out there for the folks that are with us who might want to help either volunteer or learn more about this important issue. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
I am Marino.
Je suis Marino.
I am Marino.
I believe that we are all connected to each other, and that it is the gift of compassion that unites us and makes us one. It doesn't matter what language, culture, or tradition we come from. We can share compassion wherever we are.
Marino, an American Catholic organization of priests and brothers, has been reaching out to those in need for nearly 100 years in 26 countries throughout the world. Marino dedicates 86 cents of every dollar donated to their programs, and with your help, they can do more. Missioners, workers, volunteers, supporters, we are all Marino.
I am Marino.
Yo soy Marino.
I'm Father Mike, and I am Marino.
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 There is a place where a total stranger will give you their blood. A place where someone you never knew will save your child from drowning. Where a person who doesn't look like you, talk like you, or dress like you will give you shelter after a flood. That place is called America, where we look out for each other. When you help the American Red Cross, you help America.
Church World Service believes that being self-reliant is a joy everyone should share. So around the block or around the world, share the joy.
Welcome back to our show. We're talking with Kitty Sherer and Jim Knight on human trafficking. Before we took a break, we were talking primarily about the victims. Let's talk about the flip side, the perpetrators. In between one of the tapings, you had mentioned that sometimes the perpetrators used to be a victim themselves, which is really kind of an eye-opener for me, and I would imagine for many people. But let's talk about the perpetrators and what leads them to something like this.
Well, specifically, I think especially when you're talking about sex trafficking, if the children are pulled in, we said the average age was between 12 and 14 that they are pulled into sex trafficking. It's a very young, impressionable age. It's an age then that it kind of destroys the rest of their life. One statistic we throw out is that the average age of a sex trafficked child is 7 years. So by the time they hit 20, they're usually dead, either from drugs or abuse. So what happens then, they try to do anything to better their lot. So to get on the other side of it, they'll start recruiting other people. So, which is very sad. You'd think that they would have sympathy and think they don't want anybody to be involved in this themselves. But the flip side is true. They're willing to do anything to better their lot in life, and they don't see any other options. So,
well, I think it would almost be natural in a sad way that that's the only thing they know.
Right, it is.
Yeah, that's very much so. And as Kitty was saying, it's just it just really comes from if that's what they were raised with, that's what they know, and that's what they're going to be gravitating towards. And some may also be, we've seen probably some cases in the past where a parent may be trafficking their own child because they could be dealing with a heroin or opiate addiction. And so we see that linkage a lot in these cases as well. Or the trafficker may get their victim addicted to heroin or opiates or another drug as well.
Let's talk about the big issue, what can we do about it? Because, you know, sometimes we feel so inept in dealing with some of these major issues that really affect a lot of people. So what would be some of the bottom lines that the folks that are with us or that we can do as a community?
Well, it is a huge problem, and sometimes people are just, it's so staggering that they think, well, what can I really do to make a difference? One of the biggest things that we say is to be aware, to be informed, to pay attention to your surroundings. We all shop at stores, we all go to restaurants, you know, women especially frequent nail salons and hair salons. Unfortunately, those are areas that are a big source of trafficked victims. And get on mailing lists. And we have, you know, our organization. We're happy to have any kind of interest in volunteers, and we will send out information. If they go onto the web, there are Polaris has a wonderful resource as far as leading you to statistics if you want that, or organizations within a certain locale. And also as consumers, as people, you know, not just as Catholics or Christians, you know, but we are morally obligated to watch out for our fellow man and not be greedy. So when you're talking about, you know, making money by buying the cheapest clothing we can find or, you know, good deals on food, we have to look back to see where does that food come from, you know, or is it a 4-year-old, you know, child on the coast of Africa fishing in hazardous conditions? Is it somebody in a slave labor, you know, industry in the East, you know, making clothing? We have an obligation to, like, research this to some degree, and then also look for fair trade, you know, stamps, and you can see that on coffee is very popular, chocolate. The bottom line is, though, those products are usually more expensive because they're paying a fair wage to somebody, and that makes it cost more. So I think, though, we are obligated to each other to pay a little bit more, so somebody else, we're not, you know, exploiting other people either by what we do or turn our back to.
In the area of law enforcement, Jim, let's say someone notices something. Should they contact a policeman or police person? What should they do?
I would say just a couple brief things in advance. If anybody's want to know ahead of time, what I would advise them to do, even before they may see a sign of human trafficking, contact their police department and ask if there's a particular detective that oversees that area of human trafficking. So if they do come across something they suspect could be related to human trafficking and needs police attention, they can call and ask to speak to that, detective directly. If there's a situation where they're not sure it could be human trafficking related, especially if they are out of their town, it could be somewhere else on the road or in another town, they can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline number at 1-888-373-7888. And that's for the Polaris, and that will feed into law enforcement agencies to be checked out.
Or should people be unafraid to do that? Do you know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, you can do it anonymously.
Okay. Yes.
The only thing they want on the hotline is they would like you to be as specific as possible.
Sure.
So, unfortunately, Ohio is a big crossroads state. We have a great interstate highway system, but you can get across the state. You can get to a lot of major cities in the United States within one day. Our proximity to Canada, a lot of people can come in through Canada, across Lake Erie even. So there's what they would like you to do is be specific. We have more truck stops in Ohio than any other state in the country. So if you're at a truck stop and you see something going on, you call the hotline. And when being specific, you could say, you can give license plate numbers. You can say, I see a van with, 10, 12-year-old girls, and they seem to be wandering around in this truck stop. The more specific you can get, then they can follow up on it.
Yeah,
but they don't really want your personal name or anything.
Right. As with any information, it's in any kind of case, they want the specific details that you can give them, license plate, and even what kind of vehicle it is.
It's interesting because, sometimes we may think, well, maybe it's not what I thought it was, or maybe it's not what I think it is, so I'm not going to say anything. But even that instinct there might help save a life.
Exactly. And that's what we always say. It's better to speak up, and they have. There are no repercussions. If it was something totally innocent and they follow up on it and there's nothing there, it's not like they care. Okay, so it's you're better off to speak up if you suspect something than to not say anything and turn a blind eye to it.
Sure. Well, Jim Knight, Kitty Sherer, thank you so much for being with us. Just heightening the awareness of this tremendous issue that really has been plaguing us for so long, and for whatever reason continues to do so. And for the folks that are with us, we would like them to be concerned about that. And if they see something or hear something, please go to their law enforcement agency to make a claim, to let them know that this is happening, because in turn they may save an individual or more people that really are victims of this terrible, terrible issue. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for being with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
Spotlight has been a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Korda.